Hi, my name is Rod, and I'm from Southern California. Before I came on this tour, then I was one of those kind of people who would watch a few minutes of that World Vision African crisis stuff on TV for a few minutes, and then I'd change the channel. It was easy to do, and it wasn't really what I wanted to watch. I guess the crisis and the people just never seemed very real to me. One of the songs we sing says, "And as we observe them through our TV screens, they seem so distant and unreal, but they bleed like we bleed, and they feel what we feel." Margaret was one of those people who I just couldn't believe was real. She lives way out in the middle of nowhere in a little hut that's about half the size of my kitchen. And as I walked into her hut, then I looked off on one side and I saw a couple of mats that looked like they were probably their beds. And off on the other side, then there was a pile of rocks on the ground that looked like that's where they had prepared their food. And then I noticed there's a small bowl of corn that was just on the dirt floor over here next to the beds. And I noticed there was quite a few ears of corn in there, and I thought, well, that's going to be really nice, and they'll have a pretty decent meal tonight. And then the interpreter told us that that was all the food they had, because the drought had been so severe in that area. After that, then we walked out of the hut, and the interpreter told us that Margaret had to work for their family. She was pulled out of school because her mother and father were too old and too weak to work. This little girl, she's 12 years old, and she carries a real heavy pile of lumber for 20 kilometers every day to some place where she can hopefully try to sell it. And if she could sell it, then her family would have another meal. And if she couldn't, and she walked home for 20 kilometers, and they just went hungry again. The whole thing seemed so depressing to me. And I looked into Margaret's eyes, and I couldn't see her as an object. I couldn't see one of those Africans that I had seen on TV, one of those starving people. I saw a fragile, weather-beaten little girl who's got hopes, and she's got dreams, and she's got fears just like me. And I found out that World Vision had a food distribution project in that area, but the project was running out of funds, so now there was nothing that they could do. And then just before we walked back to the vans, we're about to leave, then Margaret came over to say goodbye to us, and we just felt something for him. So we gave him the rest of the lunches that we had, and we gave him a little bit of money that was in our pockets to help them on for a little bit. And she was just so happy, and I couldn't understand why she could be so happy, because we didn't give her very much. We didn't have very much there with us, but the interpreter told us she was just so happy that the Lord had provided for her that she just felt like she could cry. But she couldn't. So we cried for her. And I don't know if it was because of her pride or her sorrow, or just because she knew she's going to be in the same situation again in just a couple weeks. But Margaret is real. And her 6 brothers and sisters are all real too. I had to go to Africa and see the crisis and the drought and what was going on over there before I could feel a reasonable amount of compassion for these people. And I just pray tonight that we can communicate this message to you so that you can feel for them without actually having to go and experience the pain as we did. Thank you.